musical genius who needs no introduction.
I should probably get this place cleaned up before we start any actual video, so let's just do that fast. Alright, hey everyone, it's EvantySeven here, and with GP Toronto just around the corner coming up this weekend, I thought it'd be a good idea to sit down and do a little bit of a Magic the Gathering video. So today we're going to be doing something a bit different. It's going to be an EDH deck tech. I'm going to show you one of my best EDH decks that I will be bringing to GP Toronto, and we're going to see, you know, maybe I can give you some tips on how to build this commander, maybe I can give you tips on how to play commander, I don't know, but I thought I'd sit down and do a little bit of a deck tech. So, without further ado, this is Breya, the Etherium Shaper. So Breya Etherium Shaper is actually my oldest commander deck. It started out as sort of an Aloro Esper commander based on artifacts, but then I decided to splash red into it with her colors, and I just thought her abilities were kind of cool, and so I decided to build a deck around her. This is the deck that I've put the most time and unfortunately the most money into, so I'm just gonna take it apart. I'm gonna show you guys what kind of tech I've put into this deck to make it fun to play with, and I'm gonna show you some key points of this deck and other stuff that I think are really cool, so I hope you guys enjoy it. So we're starting out with artifacts, and this is including artifact creatures because it is an artifact deck, and it's got some staples that you would expect in an artifact EDH deck. All sorts of stuff that really focuses on artifacts, or just good artifacts all around. But there are a few things in here that don't exactly make sense. It's not exactly your typical EDH artifact deck. So the first one is Lotus Bloom, and a lot of people ask me why I've run this, and mostly it's because when you drop this on turn 1, everyone knows that you're going to have at least 7 mana by turn 4, you know, and with 7 mana you can cast things like Breya, or you can get early Wormcoil Engine. It really opens your opportunities to drop some high-powered, high-cost stuff early in the game, and I think that 7 mana on turn 4, assuming you hit all your land drops, is really helpful. And even if you don't hit all your land drops, I find that Lotus Bloom helps me correct my mana situation if I'm ever having trouble. This deck also contains some cards that I find are a bit underplayed in Commander, such as Shimmermere. I have never gone up against an artifact deck that ran Shimmermere. I'm not sure why, but I think that Shimmermere is extremely helpful for getting some of these artifacts into play at instant speed or on other people's end steps, for example, and I think it works really, really well with Unwinding Clock, which lets you untap all your artifacts on other people's untap steps, because you sit there with Unwinding Clock and a bunch of artifacts in play that tap for mana, and then you can just play artifacts at instant speed, and it's really stupid, you know, because when you're dropping things like Thopter Assembly or Platinum Angel on people's end steps, they have no idea what to do about it. And I always thought that that was, yeah, while a bit dicky and douchey to do, I always thought it was pretty funny to see people's reactions when I drop stuff like that on their end step and then untap and play my turn. It's always a good bit of fun with Shimmermere in play. Now, as you probably noticed, we're also running some infinitely loopable combos here. We're running Card Clan Ironworks with Thopter Foundry and Sword of the Meek to give us an infinite colorless mana and infinite life and infinite Thopter combination. This allows me to create an infinite amount of the blue 1/1 Thopters that have flying with Sword of the Meek and Ashnod's Altar or Karat Clan Ironworks. I decided to go with both of these because I found that Karat Clan Ironworks can be extremely helpful in situations where you have artifacts in play but not enough mana to drop a bomb on the battlefield. Some people typically just stick with Ashnod's Altar, but I thought it would be a nice idea to include both. We're also running Skull Clamp with that combo, which allows me to infinitely draw cards from my library by equipping Skull Clamp to my Thopters and also sacking them to Ashnod's Altar to make mana to continuously equip and then kill them with Skull Clamp and draw a bunch of cards. It's a very good combo. And we're also running a copy of Nim Deathmantle, which allows me to infinitely loop Breya with one of my 2 sack outlets that create mana to continuously put Breya into the graveyard, then back into the battlefield, and make Thopters as she enters the battlefield. I think it's really cool. We're also running a few bomb cards. This has been particularly helpful in winning games and helps me take control of people's combos that might counter what I'm doing. This is obviously just a bomb that explodes on the field every time you play it. This has been helpful. I've really floated this in and out of my deck a lot because I don't exactly like this line of text, but sometimes in competitive play it can be a bit helpful. Thopter Assembly, I wouldn't really call it a bomb, but I really enjoy playing it. I think it's a fun card to play, and if Breya's not in play, it gives you an outlet to have some Thopters in play and a nice 5/5 until you can get Breya out. And then of course we have Wormcoil Engine, and he's just good. Look at him. He is gonna eat you right up. Yeah. And, you know, his little babies are gonna eat you too. This is one you don't mess with. We're going to move on to instants and sorceries now, and the first thing you notice is this is a disallow. Now, any good EDH deck has a fair bit of counter magic in it, so I'm running disallow in the deck because it's great. It stops abilities that destroy all my artifacts, and it has countered a fair amount of Vandal Blasts, so that's always a good card to have. We have Demonic Tutor, which is just a staple for any black deck. Cyclonic Rift to control the board when I need to. A counter spell that's been very nicely edited by my friend Ben. Check out the videos that he's in. Madcap Experiment. This has been very helpful. It's gotten Mycosynth Lattice and Darksteel Forge into play for 4 mana and a couple life. I mean, it's not that bad of a card. I think more EDH decks that run artifacts should be playing this. Next we have Open the Vaults, and this is personally one of my favorite cards in the deck because people think they're very cheeky when they start filling up my graveyard and putting all my artifacts and enchantments into the graveyard, especially when my Omniscience hits the graveyard and they think, oh, I'm very cheeky because I got rid of that and now you can't cast it. When I drop this, people get very upset because they realize everything that they've just put into my graveyard is now on my battlefield. And it helps other people too, but they don't seem to notice that. Saheeli's Directive is another card that I really like. The Improvise effect helps me a lot when I have a big amount of artifacts in play, but not, particularly not a lot of mana. This one lets me put almost every artifact from my deck into play, and that's a lot of fun. Disenchant is very helpful, especially when I'm facing decks that run Mindlock Orb, or when I have Mycosynth Lattice in play. I can just remove anything I want from the field, and that's very helpful. I also run a Mana Drain alongside the Counterspell. This is really just because I pulled it from a pack, and it's a very good card, so I thought I might as well play it. Effectively a better Counterspell, and I can use that colorless mana that it gives me to my advantage. We have a Whir of Invention, which is one of my only artifact-specific tutor cards in the deck. It's helpful. It's gotten some stuff out, but it's a bit expensive at times, so I don't really play it a lot. Thoughtcast is also another great card. I'm running this instead of Brainstorm because I usually always have the affinity for artifacts out, so I like this card. And then I also have Arcane Denial, just another counterspell. Nice little fun card. I really like Arcane Denial. We're moving on to enchantments now, and this is one of the best enchantments for a artifact deck that I have ever seen. Now, at first glance, it doesn't look that good. You do get treasures every time a creature deals damage to a player, but it's the flip that is so important on this card. It basically turns into a Tolarian Academy. And when you have a lot of artifacts in play, this card is devastating. This card lets you play anything you want for any amount of mana, because more often than not, you've got so many artifacts in play that it doesn't even matter how much you tap this land for, because it's enough. And I really like that about Storm the Vault, and I think it's really highly underplayed in EDH decks. Next, we have Rhystic Study. Rhystic Study is just an amazing card overall, and I love asking people, did you pay for Rhystic Study? Because I'm a loser. Sunbird's Invocation. This is the least played, but best red enchantment in Commander, and I will debate that with people, but the reason is, this accelerates your deck so fast. This is gas. This is pouring gas on the fire. There is nothing better for putting more spells and stuff into play than this. Every time I play this, I win the game. I have not lost a game when I've had Sunbird's Invocation on the battlefield. Pia's Revolution is also another underplayed card, and I wouldn't recommend it for most EDH decks, but I really like it. I think the bolting people unless they put my artifact back into their hand is interesting, but it's really slow, so it's not the best. And then finally, we have, of course, Omniscience. It's just a great commander card all around. That and my Sunbird's Invocation, these two go well together really well, because you can drop things for free and then drop stuff off this and just keep going and going and going, and it just loops, and it's really fun. I really like these two cards, and I think Sunbird's Invocation should see more play. So we're going to do a really short section on Planeswalkers. I only run 4 in this deck, and we're starting out with Duretti Scrap Savant. And there's not really anything I can say about Duretti. He's good. His abilities are all good. I don't really get an opportunity to use his -10, but I think his other 2 abilities are just really good, especially for 4 mana. We also have Tezzeret the Schemer in this deck, and I don't really like him too much. I think his Etherium effects can be helpful, especially when I'm low on mana and I have no way to filter it. And I have killed some things with his -2, but I have never used his -7, so, and I don't think I ever will. Next we have Jace Beleren. This is the party Jace, the one that lets everyone draw cards. I've never used his -10 on someone because I'm not a dickhead, but I really do enjoy playing this one, just giving everyone a bit of a card advantage, or myself if I need to. And finally we have Saheeli the Gifted. The servo thing I don't really use a lot, but I do often use the second +1 ability that makes spells less expensive. I find that sometimes that can help me get really big bomb cards that don't have any colors in their mana cost out for free, and it's been very helpful, but I often don't get to use it because a lot of the time people just killed us. So, those are my Planeswalkers. So now we're moving on to creatures, and this in particular is my favorite creature in the deck. Imagine this. You have a Mycosynthelatus in play, and all your opponent's stuff is artifacts. Whenever they tap a land for mana, they're tapping an artifact for mana. You gain control of their lands until your next turn. Can you believe that? If you really wanted to be a dick, you could sacrifice them all to Karat Clan Ironworks, or something like that, and just be a total douchebag with this. But this card is so incredibly good with Mycosynthelatus in play that I want anyone who plays Mycosynthelatus to go out and get a copy right now, because you will not regret it. When everyone else's lands are on the battlefield under your control, you will not regret the hefty price tag on this card. It's about $13, but it's a very good card. Next we're moving on to Goblin Welder, and Goblin Welder is good. I use his ability often just to protect the stuff that's on the battlefield. I don't use it as much as I'd like to, but I really do like this card. We have Laboratory Maniac. I always feel like a douchebag whenever I win with this, but if it's because someone else is milling me out, then I don't feel as bad. We have Psymaster Thopterist, and he was dropped recently, but I don't really see people playing him as much, which I think is weird because his ability is like really good for artifact decks, but you know, whatever. Padim, of course, it's a staple if you're running blue and you're running artifacts. Artifacts having hexproof and drawing cards is just good all around for 4 mana. We have Chief Engineer. This is also one I don't see a lot, but it's nice to tap my creatures if I need to pay for the mana costs of my artifact spells, so that's helpful sometimes. Hellkite Tyrant, another staple. Winning when you have artifacts, or taking everyone's artifacts, especially if they're Mycosynth, is just so satisfying and yet so douchey at the same time. Consecrated Sphinx, very good card. Nothing I can say about it. I just play it because that's a very good line of text. Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. I really like playing this. This has been in the deck since it was first made. This is one of the only cards that hasn't been taken out, and exiling 2 target permanents when you cast it, and exiling the top 20 cards of their library when you attack is monstrous. This guy is so good. Next we have Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Drawing 4 cards when he comes in, plus the Annihilator 4, it makes the hefty mana cost so worth it. I really love playing this guy. Vidalcan Engineer, obviously, just adding mana for my mana spells. And then we have Jin Gitaxias. And Jin Gitaxias is a douchebag card to play. But I, EvantySeven, admit that I am a terrible person, and I will always play this card against you. And I will laugh when you do not have a hand size. Now we're doing our lands section, and there's not much I can say about my lands other than the fact that I do run 3 basics of each type. Now, the reason I run 3 basics of each type of land is because more often than not, I've been in a situation where I'm forced to search for a basic land because someone's Sword to Plowshares me or something like that. And I really, really hate not being able to grab a basic land from my deck and put it into play when I get Swords to Plowshared or something like that, because it just adds insult to injury. So I've got a lot of dual lands. Sea of Clouds, of course. We run all the artifact lands in this deck because they are helpful. Command Tower, of course, that's a staple. Buried Ruin, I have kind of sifted this card in and out of my deck a few times, but I've decided for now that I'm going to hold on to it because I think it can be helpful in some situations. We've got a Reliquary Tower, of course, that's a staple. Sacred Foundry, we've got the nice shock land. We've got Dragon Skull Summit, a nice check land. We've got Inventor's Fair. I use Inventor's Fair's search ability more than I use it to actually play for mana, but it's been helpful with that, so I use it a lot. We also have Academy Rune, which is a staple in any artifact EDH deck, because this ability is super good and this card deserves the price tag it has. We've got another shock land with Steam Vents. We've got City of Brass. Now, a lot of people wonder why I play this, and I find City of Brass to be a really helpful mana fixing card. I would replace it for something else, but as of right now, I think that this is one of my best options, and I'm not going to take this out. We've got a nice revised mountain that I got from my friend. It's very nice. This is my most proud basic land because this land is worth money, but I really like it. We've got another shock land, and then we run 1 Evolving Wilds just in case I get mana banged while I'm trying to go off. Now this Breya deck is nowhere near the level of competitive play that I see a lot of artifact decks or other EDH decks at, but this deck, if it's left alone for long enough, really pops off. If I'm left alone for a certain amount of turns, there hasn't been a game I've lost when I'm not the only person being focused. And I think that this deck has, it's come a long way. I started this deck out, like I said, as an Aloro deck, and Aloro was my first commander, and I really, you know, that's back when I didn't really know what I was doing. I had bombs in the deck, but I didn't know how to use them. And my buddy showed me Breya the Etherium Shaper, and I fell in love. This has been my longest running commander, my most worked commander, my most loved commander, and I don't think there will ever be a time when I don't play her. So... And of course, if you'd like to see EvantySeven at GP Toronto, this is the EvantySeven hat. This is how you can identify him. He will be wearing this, so make sure you look out for it. Thanks for watching my deck tech video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a comment, leave a like, leave a subscribe. Make sure you smash that like button, and we'll see you guys in the next video.